My daughter nearly died in the desert. My mom called it space. My sister said she's dramatic. I said nothing. But I did this. It didn't begin with a fight, not with yelling, slamming doors, or dramatic exits. No, it started with something far quieter. A ding. A single notification while I was folding laundry, half watching reruns with the volume low. One of those background moments, the kind you'd normally forget in 5 minutes. But not this one. It was from Allison's emergency smartwatch low battery alert. That shouldn't have happened. My daughter is not the type to let anything die. She's 17 and charges her phone at 72% just in case. She carries 2 backup batteries. I bought them for her after a flat tire incident when she was 15, and she never let them leave her backpack since. So when her GPS watch of all things pinged low battery, my stomach dropped. I checked the app. The signal was fading, blinking red out in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't a neighborhood. It wasn't a roadside. It was a long, thin trail of dirt, tucked somewhere deep in Arizona's backcountry miles, from the highway surrounded by nothing but jagged red rock and dry heat. 1 to 15 degrees, according to the weather map, and the icon, her icon, wasn't moving. I tried calling. Once. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Then again. Still nothing. By the 4th call, my hands had started to shake. Allison had gone on a weekend bonding trip with my parents and my sister Claire. A short getaway, they'd said. Some hiking, some family time. Claire's 2 kids, Mason and Chloe, were going, and they wanted Allison to join too. Just the cousins, let's make memories, Claire had texted. Mom had followed up with, we'd love to spend more time with her. You could use a break, Rosabella. I'd hesitated. Allison had hesitated too. Her relationship with my side of the family was complicated, to put it lightly. A history of polite dismissals and forced smiles. My parents always smiled at her like they were trying to understand a language they didn't speak. They bought her glitter pens when she was 12. Allison liked black gel ink. They tried in their way, but it was like they were performing love, not feeling it. Still, they had said the right things this time. Fresh start, Claire had texted. We want to do better. Allison had read that text 3 times. Then she looked at me and asked, what if they actually mean it? I should have said no, but instead, I helped her pack. SPF 70 portable, fan her sun hat, the emergency battery, the watch, the backup snacks. She rolled her eyes at my checklist. I hugged her twice, told her I loved her 3 times, like that would somehow shield her. And now her watch was dying. Her phone was off, and her signal was blinking out in the middle of an empty desert trail. I called my mother. She answered on the 2nd ring like she'd been expecting it. Oh, she wandered off a bit, she said casually. Got upset over something. She said she needed some space. In the middle of the desert, I asked. She's being dramatic. Claire's voice cut in. She was on speaker. You know how she gets. I didn't say a word. Not one. Because if I did, I was going to scream. Or sob. Or say something I could never take back. And I didn't have the time to waste on a performance. So I hung up. I didn't wait for their excuses. Instead, I opened my laptop, booked the first flight to Flagstaff. Then I scrolled down through my contacts and pulled up a number I hadn't used in almost 6 years. His name was Luis Delgado, a wilderness survival instructor I'd met during a canyon trip years ago when I was still trying to find something in myself that hadn't been burned out by motherhood and a brutal divorce. He answered on the 2nd ring. Rosabella. I need your help, I said. He didn't ask why, just asked where. By the time I landed, Luis was already waiting near the rental counter. His car was loaded with extra water-printed hiking maps, a first aid kit, and that quiet look he always had, the one that said, we'll do this the hard way if we have to. We reached the trailhead before sunset. No parked cars, no rangers, no hikers, just that endless oppressive heat and red dust hanging in the air like smoke. I pulled up Allison's GPS log. Luis looked at the last ping and frowned. She's way off path, he said. That's not a casual hike. No, it wasn't. And she wouldn't have wandered there unless something had gone terribly wrong. I nodded. I couldn't trust my voice. We started walking. The air felt like it was clawing my skin. The sun sat low and angry in the sky, my boots filled with sand. My chest ached from the inside out. Every few feet, Luis would stop, scan the horizon, look for markers. We passed a crumpled wrapper, a loose shoelace, and then a scarf, tied neatly to a rock. Her scarf, pale yellow with tiny stitched constellations. I'd bought it for her after she aced her astronomy midterm last fall. Luis picked it up. "She's trying to be found," he said. My knees buckled. I barely stayed upright. We kept walking, and every step deeper into the trail felt like sinking into a slow-motion nightmare. A dry riverbed, a bottle still warm to the touch. Then, nothing. No sound, no wind, no movement, just the sickening silence of too late. Until I saw it, a flash, movement beneath an outcrop. I ran. Luis shouted something, but I didn't stop. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs didn't feel like mine anymore. She was there, Allison, curled under the rocks, skin-flushed lips cracked, sun hat askew. Alive. Barely. I dropped to my knees, pulled her into my arms. She was burning with heat, her breath shallow. I wiped the dust from her face, brushing back strands of hair. "Allison," I whispered. "It's okay. I'm here." She opened her eyes, mumbled something I couldn't catch. What I asked. Her lips moved again. They took my bag. On purpose. I froze. Because that wasn't neglect. That was something else entirely. And I knew right then, right there, that we were no longer dealing with a family misunderstanding. This was a plan, and it was time for mine. The hospital lights were soft, but I couldn't tell if that was mercy or just low funding. The air smelled like antiseptic and dry cotton. Allison lay in the bed beside me, IV in her arm cheeks, still too pale. The monitors beeped slowly, stubbornly, like they were daring me to relax. I didn't. The doctor had called it moderate heat exhaustion with concerning dehydration markers. But what he said next stuck harder than anything else. If she'd been out there much longer, we'd be having a very different conversation. I didn't cry. Not then. Not while she slept or while the nurse changed the drip. Not even when they handed me a form that said parent signature required for emergency stabilization. Because something colder had settled in me. Not rage, not even grief, just a kind of stillness. Like the part of me that used to beg for fairness was gone. What was left was a woman raised on polite cruelty, finally finished with pretending. I had one job now, get the truth into the right hands before they had a chance to spin it. I sat in the hospital waiting room with sand still caked to my socks, phone in one hand, Allison's camera bag in the other. It was scratched dusty but zipped shut. Inside, beneath a melted granola bar and her backup, SPF was her vlogging camera, the one I'd bought her for her birthday. She was 17 after all. Teenagers document everything. I clicked through the files with shaking fingers. There it was, footage from that morning. The video was shaky. Dust and glare distorted the edges, but the audio was clear. Claire's voice. "Go take some photos by the rocks, Allie. We'll wait right here." Allison's voice faint but clear. "Okay, I'll be quick." Then silence. No goodbyes, no sounds of packing up. Just the low hum of desert wind birdsong. 10 minutes later, Allison's camera captured her own face, puzzled, whispering, "Where did they go?" I hit pause. My breath caught. Then I did what I'd been preparing for years without even realizing. I opened my digital folder, the one labeled Emergency, Family, and started collecting receipts. Screenshots of Claire's text, "Let's start fresh," Mom's follow-up. "We'd love more time with her. You could use a break." Photos of Allison packing, including the charger, the backup watch battery, the secondary water bottle, all missing when we found her. The hospital intake form, the scarf marker, the GPS data from her watch. Her note still crumpled in her sock. "My name is Allison. My family left me. My mom's number is in my camera bag. Please call her." I didn't call my parents. I didn't scream into the void of excuses or denial. I emailed Benson Graves, Grandma Rose's attorney. Subject line urgent, Arizona incident. Attachments, video logs, photos, hospital intake the note, and Claire's text. No commentary, just facts. He replied in 42 minutes, meeting with Rose, scheduled tomorrow. Be available over the next 2 weeks. This will not stay quiet. Then I made my second call. Not 911. That wasn't the right mechanism. I wanted this documented, not dismissed. I called the Flagstaff Sheriff's Office and asked for the detective handling wilderness incidents or abandoned minors. They patched me through to Detective Moreno. I kept it short. My daughter was abandoned on a desert trail by my mother and sister. I have evidence, digital and written, that this act was not accidental. I believe it was premeditated. He asked if they'd reported Allison missing. No. Did they search for her? No. Did they know she was alone when they left? Yes. I can prove it. There was a pause on the other end, then calm and sharp. Can you come in? I'm out of state, I said. But I can send everything securely, and I'll file a sworn affidavit. He gave me a secure upload link. I sent it all. When I walked back into Allison's hospital room, she was awake barely. She blinked at me like I was a dream, lips cracked, voice hoarse. Are they coming? She asked. I sat beside her. Not unless it's in handcuffs. She gave me the faintest smile, the kind that said good without saying it. That night, she slept with one hand on her camera bag and one clutching the corner of the sheet like an anchor. I didn't leave the chair beside her bed. Not for food, not for rest, not until morning when her voice came back stronger. I don't think they ever meant to bring me home, she said. I didn't disagree. I didn't sugarcoat it, because she needed truth more than protection now, and she was strong enough to hold it. We reviewed the footage together. She told me what she remembered, how Claire took her emergency bag out of the car to make more room, then never put it back in. How she was told to turn off her phone so it could charge. How the cousins were told Allison's meeting a friend later. Scripted. Deliberate. They were laying groundwork for an alibi. When I asked her if she wanted to report them herself, she shook her head. No. I want you to. Good, I said. Because I already did. That afternoon, Benson sent another email. Subject, Arizona incident. Rose has seen everything. You'll want to stay available. The documents are being redrafted. Detective Moreno's follow-up came shortly after. We're filing for formal charges, reckless endangerment of a minor failure to report an abandonment. There may be more depending on the trust documents. We'll be contacting them directly. Still, I didn't call Claire. I didn't call my parents. I didn't want apologies. I wanted silence, because silence leaves space for truth to echo. The next move would be public, not online, not performative, but documented, on paper, through the courts. Let them scream into the void next. Let them explain the camera. Let them spin their story into the wind. Because I had something they didn't, the receipts, and the girl they tried to erase, she was still here. Some people go to war with screams. I went with screenshots. I didn't alert the family. I didn't post on social media. I didn't tell friends or co-workers. I didn't even mention it to Allison's school counselor when she called to ask about her absence. I said she had the flu. But behind that silence, I was moving pieces. Luis had driven us back to the airport after Allison was discharged. We didn't speak much on the ride. He just handed me a protein bar, raised an eyebrow, and said, "They're going to spin this." I nodded. Then I started building the file that would make spinning impossible. At home, I opened the family fallout binder, the one Grandma Rose had insisted every woman in the family keep, though I was the only one who actually did. I added a new tab desert. Inside, printed screenshots of Claire's text inviting Allison, a photo of Allison's packed emergency bag which she left behind only because they told her to, the GPS heat map showing her walking in circles, then stopping, a signed hospital release form, a certified timestamp of the sheriff's evidence upload, Allison's note in her own handwriting, the transcript from the camera footage, and my own affidavit notarized. I included one photo from the hospital, just one. Allison in the bed, an IV in her arm, sunburned and silent. I wasn't sure who I was protecting anymore, her or the next girl they might try this with. When Benson Grandma Rose's attorney called the next evening, he didn't waste time. I've shown Rose everything he said. She didn't blink. She believes it. She knows it. Of course she did. Rose didn't operate on feelings. She operated on facts, logic, consequence. The kind of woman who reads entire trusts out loud with a red pen in hand, who ironed her linen napkins during COVID and kept her garden alive during a drought. The kind of woman who told me at 16, never underestimate the cowardice of those who call themselves decent. Benson continued, "We're drafting a new clause to reinforce the will. She wants everything airtight. There will be an announcement you should attend. An announcement, a formal one," he said. "Sunday brunch. Entire family. You'll want to be there." I didn't ask what for. I already knew. And I wasn't surprised when on Friday the doorbell rang and a courier handed me a thick linen envelope with Rose's handwriting scrawled across the top. Sunday, 1:30 p.m. Wear something unshakable. Allison stood beside me reading over my shoulder. She didn't ask questions either. She just nodded, turned, and said, "I want to wear black." "Too dramatic," I asked. She looked at me flatly. "They left me to die. I think I can be a little theatrical." Sunday came, and with it the tension of 1,000 unsaid things stuffed into one estate parlor. Grandma Rose's home wasn't opulent, but it was dignified heavy rugs oil portrait silver that had been polished by the same housekeeper for 20 years. Everything about the place said legacy. Everything about that day said reckoning. The room was already full when Allison and I arrived. Claire perched at the far end of the table wearing a cream blazer and a smile that looked like it had been stapled to her face. My parents sat together near the fireplace, quietly eating biscuits as if this were any other Sunday. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother did, but only for a second before she looked away. No one stood to greet us. We didn't expect them to. Allison walked in like she owned the carpet. Black blazer, her hair tied back, no makeup, no expression. The vlogging camera was zipped in her backpack, not because she was filming, but because she could. We sat. Claire's kids whispered something behind their hands. My mother looked at me and mouthed, "Please like a hostage asking for mercy." Then Grandma Rose stepped forward. She had her cane in one hand and a folder in the other. Her hair was perfectly set, her lipstick unshaken. "Thank you for coming," she said. And the room went dead silent. Because when Rose spoke like that, clipped polite sharp, it meant someone was about to be ruined. She looked at each of us in turn. Her eyes landed on Claire last. "I have an announcement regarding my estate," she said, "and a clarification." Claire leaned forward ready. My mother froze. "I have spent the last week reviewing documentation provided to me regarding the events in Arizona," she continued. "I have seen evidence. Video hospital records, sworn testimony." She glanced down at her papers. "I am deeply disappointed in some of you." My father cleared his throat. Claire shifted in her seat. My mother's hand twitched like she wanted to grab a napkin or a cigarette, or maybe the past back when they still controlled the story. Rose kept going. "Effective, immediately, my estate will pass in full to one beneficiary. You could feel the oxygen leave the room." Claire went pale. My mother gasped. My father opened his mouth and for once said nothing. Rose didn't flinch. "That beneficiary is Allison Myers, my great-granddaughter." Claire stood. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "She's a child. You're being manipulated. She nearly died," Rose replied, voice steady. "And you left her." My mother finally spoke. "It wasn't like that." She wandered off. "You know how teenagers are." "She left a note," I said, "because she thought she wouldn't make it back." Claire's hands shook. "We didn't know you knew," I said calmly, "and I have the footage to prove it." Grandma Rose nodded. "So do the police." And just like that, the room imploded without a single raised voice. Because some wars don't need screaming. Some just need proof. They didn't call me that day. Not after the estate announcement, not after Rose's words cut through the room like a blade honed over decades. They didn't follow us out, didn't try to stop us at the driveway. The door closed behind us like a seal, final, heavy absolute. But the next day, they came in waves. The first was a voicemail from my mother. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how Allison was doing. She just said in a brittle voice, "You've torn this family apart." Then she hung up, as if I detonated something she hadn't helped build. The second was a long, winding text from Claire. "Look, I know you're upset, but what happened in Arizona wasn't what you think. Allison was acting weird. She wandered off. We were scared too. You really want to throw away everything over this?" No apology. Just a subtle shifting of blame, a familiar move, the kind Claire mastered in childhood and refined into adulthood. I didn't respond. Instead, I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the delete icon, and thought about the way Allison's voice cracked in that hospital bed. They took my bag, on purpose. The hollow resignation in her eyes, the sunburned line on her neck where the hat hadn't covered. That wasn't wandering off, that was targeted abandonment, a plan. The group chat Our Cursed Myers Family Sunday thread went quiet for 2 full days. Then Dad dropped a link with no caption, an article about navigating sibling forgiveness after a family rift. I laughed, out loud, in my kitchen, alone. Forgiveness wasn't on the table. Not yet, maybe not ever. That week, Claire's social media went unusually active. She posted smiling photos of Mason and Chloe captioned, "Family is everything a Conquer grateful." On another, she wrote, "Some people will twist your intentions, but the truth has a way of surfacing." It had 4 likes, 1 from my mom, 2 from extended cousins who hadn't spoken to me in years, and 1 from a stranger, probably a bot. She was trying to get ahead of the story. It wouldn't work. Because while she was crafting aesthetic captions, the sheriff's office was crafting charges. Detective Moreno contacted me directly. The DA is moving forward. Official charges reckless endangerment of a minor failure to report a missing person, and based on the trust documentation conspiracy to interfere with a legal inheritance. I sat very still when I heard that last one, not because I was surprised, but because it confirmed what I already knew deep in my bones. They hadn't just been careless. They'd calculated it. They'd taken Allison's bag, told her to walk, watched her go, then drove away. Maybe they thought she'd be found quickly. Maybe they hoped nature would soften the blow. But I don't think they cared if she was found at all. Because if she wasn't, the will would revert. The inheritance would be redistributed. No evidence, no fallout, just tragic silence and whispered guilt. But she lived, and I documented everything. That week, I went quiet online. No posts, no likes. I removed myself from the family calendar, backed out of Thanksgiving, declined every invitation. Allison did the same. She asked to be unenrolled from the holiday gift exchange. She deleted her aunt's number. My mother emailed a list of family grievances on a Word doc titled Reflections for Healing. I didn't open it, because what healing looks like to them is usually pretend it didn't happen. Make Rosabella apologize. Instead, I focused on making sure Allison felt safe. We got a second lock for the front door. I upgraded our emergency contact system. We installed a Ring camera. I didn't tell Allison about the formal indictments. Not at first. But then one morning she came downstairs holding the newspaper I hadn't realized had arrived. Front page local woman, charged in desert abandonment case. Teen survivor recovers in Sacramento. She looked at me, eyes unreadable. "They're going to hate me for this," she said softly. "No," I said. "They're going to hate me. And I can live with that." She didn't speak, but she folded the paper and slid it into her backpack. Later that afternoon, I found it again. She had highlighted one sentence authorities say evidence, including digital footage and tracking data, supports the theory of intentional abandonment. Next to it in pencil, she wrote, "They'll have to read this forever." Meanwhile, Grandma Rose wasn't slowing down. She wrote a public letter, handwritten, notarized, and sent to the extended family, stating her decision regarding the estate and clarifying the pattern of neglect and targeted cruelty she had witnessed in her granddaughter's treatment. She ended it with, "Do not contact me for favors. I am watching closely. And so are others." Claire responded by hiring a lawyer and a publicist. My parents sent out a family clarification email full of spiritual platitudes and zero accountability. Rose sent it back with one sentence typed at the top. "Your email is vague." The girl nearly died. It was like watching an empire crumble, not with a bang, but with 1,000 facts none of them could refute. I went to work. I picked Allison up from therapy. I made dinner, I paid bills, all the normal things. But in the quiet of night, I still checked the GPS tracker twice, even though she was safe, even though she was home, because that fear, that certainty that no one else would protect her the way she deserved, that doesn't leave you overnight. It hardens you, shapes you, and prepares you for the next battle, because they weren't done yet, and neither was I. 9 months later, we were back in Arizona, not for closure, not for healing, for the trial. The courtroom wasn't grand or cinematic like in the movies. It was beige, too cold, too quiet. Fluorescent lights buzzed above us. Allison wore her black blazer again, but this time with a blue pin Grandma Rose had given her shaped like a hawk. I wore navy, no makeup, just clear eyes and a steady spine. When the bailiff called our case, I felt my stomach twist, not with fear, but with a pressure I'd been holding for nearly a year. The weight of every time I'd bitten my tongue. Every maybe they didn't mean it I'd swallowed to keep the peace. The courtroom was where the truth would be said aloud under oath, in a room where they couldn't talk over me, hang up, or send a Word doc titled Reflections. Claire sat with her attorney jaw set like she was bracing for a photo op. My parents were there too, looking thinner, older, still polished, still presentable, as if appearance could grant them innocence. Allison was called first. She stood, walked with quiet purpose to the witness stand, raised her hand, swore the oath. The prosecutor asked gently, "Can you tell us what happened that day?" And my daughter, my quiet, sarcastic, fiercely perceptive girl, spoke with a calm that made me ache. "I was told to walk ahead to take photos," she said. "I brought my small bag phone, watch, water, but not my emergency bag. Claire said she took it out to make more room." She never gave it back. She inhaled slowly. When I turned around, the car was gone. "And what did you think I thought? Maybe they'd gone around to meet me on the other side," she said. But then I realized I didn't have my charger, my second bottle, my map, my ID, my backup GPS. She looked directly at Claire, voice unwavering. They knew what I packed, and they knew what they left me with. The prosecutor nodded. "And do you believe they intended for you to be found?" There was a pause. Then Allison said clearly, "I don't think they cared if I made it out. I think they were hoping I wouldn't." You could hear the collective inhale. Even Claire's attorney stiffened. The footage from the camera was entered into evidence next. Claire's voice, "Go get some good shots." Allison's response, "I'll be quick." 10 minutes of silence. Then Allison's whisper. Where did they go? Next came the GPS log, the 2-hour pause, the wandering circles, the sharp decline in location pings, then me, my own testimony. I kept it simple. Claire's text, "Let's start fresh. Mom's promise." We'd love more time with her, my calls, the voicemail, the way they sounded calm when I was frantic, the scarf, the hospital records, the note in her sock. "I don't know what they thought would happen," I said, "but I know what almost did, and that was enough." The judge recessed for 24 hours. We spent the night in a small hotel close to the courthouse. I watched Allison sleep, no IV, no dry lips this time, and thought about how close we came to never having this night. I remembered the way she whispered, "They took my bag," the way Claire had smiled at the brunch table, as if this would all pass if we just let her talk enough. Morning came fast. We were back in court by 9 a.m. The judge entered. Everyone stood. He was an older man, solemn eyes, a clipped voice, the kind that didn't tolerate theater. This case, he began, is not a typical family dispute. This is not about hurt feelings or misunderstandings. This is about a coordinated act of abandonment against a minor, with financial motive. He paused, looked directly at Claire. There is clear, compelling evidence that the abandonment was not accidental, that critical supplies were withheld, that the victim was misled and left without recourse. His voice hardened. This wasn't negligence. This was calculated. He read the sentences slowly. Claire, 9 years, no parole for the first 5. My parents, 6 years each based on accessory charges and failure to report a missing person. There was no outburst, no crying, just silence. That cold, suffocating kind that only comes when people realize the consequences are real this time. Claire's jaw slackened. My mother swayed in her seat. My father stared forward, expressionless. Allison didn't flinch. The judge ended with, "If not for the swift actions of the mother and the resilience of the victim, we would likely be addressing this case as a homicide." I looked at my daughter. She blinked once, then stood and walked out of the courtroom into the Arizona sun. No fist pump, no cheers, just the dry heat and her steady steps. I followed. Outside, reporters waited. We said nothing. Allison shielded her eyes from the sun, looked out across the street, and said quietly, "We should get tacos." I laughed for the first time in weeks. "Yeah," I said, "we should." And that was it. No victory parade, no apology letters, just truth and silence and the space to finally breathe. There's a kind of peace that comes after fire, not loud, not triumphant, just still. In the months following the trial, the noise quieted. The texts stopped. The group chat never revived. No one dared say family is everything out loud around me anymore. The people who once looked at me with polite pity now looked away completely, and honestly, that was easier. We didn't go to Thanksgiving, or Christmas, or Claire's kids' birthdays, not because we weren't invited, we were sort of, but every invitation came laced with guilt, wrapped in phrases like, "Let's put this behind us," or "Can't we start fresh? We knew better than to answer." Instead, we hiked. Every other Sunday, Allison and I picked a new trail. Nothing dangerous, nothing remote. But we still overpacked every single time. 3 water bottles, 2 chargers, SPF 100, an emergency whistle she insisted on blowing randomly just to startle me. I never told her to stop, because every time I heard that shrill, obnoxious little tweet echo across a peaceful canyon, it reminded me, she's here. She's safe. They didn't win. We started therapy separately. Her choice. She said she needed somewhere to talk without protecting me. I nodded and booked her first session that same day. She told her therapist the truth about the manipulation, the whispers, the way Claire would say things like, "You're too sensitive," right after doing something cruel. She talked about the way adults made her feel like she was always overreacting when all she wanted was to feel like she belonged to someone without conditions. I told my therapist different truths about how I was raised to be the quiet one, the helper, the problem solver, the good daughter who kept peace by folding herself smaller and smaller until there was barely anything left to unfold. I told her about my silence, how I thought if I didn't rock the boat, no one would drown. But someone did. My daughter left in a desert by people who claimed to love her, because I taught them I wouldn't fight back. But I did. Eventually, I did. And I will never unlearn that again. As for Grandma Rose, she didn't attend the trial, said she didn't need to. The truth would do the talking. But she sent Allison a note written in her careful, scrawled handwriting. "The strong ones always frighten the liars. You're not broken. You're built differently. Let them fear that. Love, Rose." Inside the envelope was a copy of the will, updated, signed, witnessed, filed, Allison's name at the top, full inheritance rights, irrevocable. "Should anything happen to me," Rose said later over tea, "I trust you'll know how to keep it safe." "I will," I said, "but I hope you're around for another decade just to make them squirm." She laughed, a real deep laugh. Me too. The house is quieter now, but not hollow. Allison plays music again, sometimes loud enough to be heard through her closed door. She leaves mugs on the kitchen counter. I don't remind her to clean them up right away. I let her feel the weight of safety of knowing she's allowed to take up space. She's still sarcastic, still sharp. But sometimes I catch her smiling with her whole face. Last week she said something I didn't expect. Do you think people like them ever get it? What do you mean? Like, do they ever realize they're the villains, or do they just rewrite the story in their heads until they believe it? I thought about that for a long time. Then I said, I think some people live in fiction because the truth scares them, but that doesn't make their version real. She nodded. Yeah, I figured. Then she got up and blew the hiking whistle from the other room just to annoy me. I rolled my eyes. But I smiled too. Because we made it. They tried to erase her to make her a footnote in someone else's legacy, but now they're the ones missing from the story. Not her, never her. So now I ask you, was this justice? Did I go too far, or not nearly far enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting someone you love, I want to hear your story. And if you want more true stories like this, subscribe. Because sometimes the people who try to bury you forget you were the seed, and you've already started growing.